Okay, we're going to get the PowerPoint up on the screen. So, first and foremost, I'm not a pastor. I'm Mr. People think because I work at the church synod office building, I'm a pastor, but I'm not. In fact, I'm an adult confirmand. I went to a Catholic grade school growing up. So I didn't become a Lutheran until March 27th, 1983. A long time ago for you guys, but I was 21, 22 at the time. And now the Lord's chosen me to be able to work in His church on your behalf at supporting all of our pastors and our missionaries to share God's word in other countries. Sweet. So, how many of you know where Vietnam is? It's a long ways away. This past July, I had made my 10th trip there. Now, before I took this job, I worked here in Madison for a construction company, and the farthest I ever went was Duluth. You know where Duluth is? It's in Minnesota. So that's the furthest I had ever traveled. But then God tapped me on the shoulder and said, "We need you to help." So this past July, I finished my 10th trip in Vietnam. And what we're doing there is we're building a school. We're building a school so that the Hmong people, not the Vietnamese people, not the Laos people, the Hmong people can learn how to be pastors to their flock. Just like you have pastor or the principal up here and you have pastor give the devotion. Those guys went through a lot of training, went through a lot of schooling, more than you and I have gone through, so that they're trained how to share the gospel, and that's what we're doing in Vietnam. I'm going to open with turning this on. Let's see here. There we go, I got it behind. I'm going to read this Bible verse to you. When we first started in this work back in 2014, 2015, we did a Bible study and in the office, in the missions office, and this is the passage, the Bible passage we chose. In the same way, the gospel is bearing fruit and growing throughout the whole world, just as it has been doing among you since the day you heard it and truly understood God's grace. So I told you a little bit about me and my upbringing and where I learned about God, and then I truly learned about God. I too got to experience that one day where I fully understood God's grace. So it's a real treat to be able to see all the Hmong families, the moms, the dads, the children, finally learn to understand God's grace like we do. So in 2011, so who in here was born in 2011? That was impromptu. That's not part of my script. I just thought that's a long time ago for you guys. Pastor Lou, this is Zhang Lou, was online, and he heard Pastor Boone Keel Lore, Pastor Boone's sermon on YouTube. And he was very interested in it. So he reached out to Pastor Boone and said, "Can you help us better understand this gospel that you're talking about? Because that's not how we understand this to be." So in 2011, there's going to be some math. Who likes math? I'm a fine art major. I majored in art history. I don't like math. I like traveling. God took care of that for me too. So in 2011, the Hmong Fellowship Church had 55,000 members in it. That's a lot of people. But I want you to pay attention to that number, that 55,000 right there, because you're going to see that number grow through God's grace. So the ladies here are dressed up for church. They dress like this every single day for church. So they don't just have church on Sundays either. Sometimes they have church on Thursdays, and sometimes they have church on Mondays. It depends when they can all get together and the pastor comes to their village. So it's not dedicated to Sunday like we have, or Thursday night, or Monday night, or Saturday night. It's whenever the pastor can come to their village. So they dress up. And their church services last not 1 hour, not 2 hours, but 3 hours long. Could you pay attention for 3 hours in a church service? I had a difficult time myself. But they do offerings. They do offerings 3 times during that service. And you know what they bring for offerings? We got to put our gifts towards this ministry in the giving plate. You know what they bring? Bags of rice. They bring dead chickens by their feet up to the pastor, and they give it to the pastor. Sometimes they bring little baby goats as their thank offering to their pastor for sharing the word with them. Because they don't have the money, they don't have the resources, but they know the pastor is giving up his time to have his own farm. So those are the gifts that they bring the pastor. So I told you Pastor Boone was contacted by Pastor Zora, and so Pastor Boone visited Vietnam for the first time in 2012. Now this isn't a picture of Pastor Boone in 2012 because Pastor Boone wasn't there legally. Nobody in the office, nobody in charge of risk management, nobody in charge of missions operations knew Pastor Boone was going over there. So he was going over there at his own expense, on his own time. The reason I know that is because you see this unit right here. You know what that is? That's an air conditioning unit. And that's got that yellow tag on it because it's brand new. Because after my first trip there, I made sure that they had money for air conditioners. Because I knew I was going to go back. Because it's about 105 degrees there every day. Maybe 97 to 105. And really, really humid. So the Pastoral Studies Institute was asked to come and help develop the classroom curriculum, the stuff that the teachers teach you every day. So this is Professor, now Dr. John Baer, and he went to Vietnam for the first time in 2016. I got to take a lot of the pictures in this slide presentation, and these slides don't really do Vietnam justice. It's a beautiful country. But here it is with one of the students in there and his 2 young boys. And I want you to look at this number right here. That's 70,000. What was the last number of how many members they had? Right, 55,000. So they grew by that much already, right? 15,000 members they grew in just 4 years. So as we started working more and more with the Hmong Fellowship Church, they have to answer to a different kind of government that we have. So they have to answer to the Vietnamese Fellowship Church. So that's their boss. That's who's in charge. So this gentleman right here is a representative of the Vietnamese Fellowship Church, and he wanted to come and look at us as a church body and say, okay, are you guys for real? Are you guys really who you say you are? So he flew to the United States to see our offices, and then we had him visit our seminary in Mequon and our college in New Ulm to show him that we do have our training program like we're doing for the Hmong Fellowship Church. So then they got back, and after a couple of conversations that we had, the Vietnamese government asked us to build a theological education center. That's a big school. That's a very fancy school. So that we can train those brothers and sisters how to be teachers of God's word to their villages and to their people. The government of Vietnam is a government that controls what content, controls what is taught in their country very closely. They watch things like religion very closely, and they keep a close eye on what we're doing. So it's a very unique gift, a very big gift for them to be able to allow us to do this. So that's one of their churches. I put this photo in there because you see this beam right here. I'm in operation, sorry. You see this beam right here? That's where the church ended originally. But because now they went from 55 to 70 to 120,000 members in that church, they just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So they had to build on. Because my first time there, when these windows were open, people were 4 or 5 people deep in the window to hear what pastor was saying, or standing in the doorway. They had to pack so many people in there, so they built on the church, and that still wasn't enough. So you know what they did? They added a second service. Without a church council meeting, without a voters meeting. Works in that dog crowds. They just added a second service, so they asked the pastor to come back and do it again. Because look, 120,000 members now. So when I go over there, like I said, I was over there about 10 times. When I go over there, there's not a lot of grown men with beards. And I got a big beard. And so when I go over there, the humidity and the heat makes my beard get really big. So it kind of looks like Santa Claus, just this really big beard. So I was standing there, and this little boy just was staring at me. Just stared at me, like no matter where I walked, he just followed me, like his eyes were locked on. So I walked up to him, and I don't speak Hmong, and he doesn't speak English, but he reached out and he just went like this on my beard. He just wanted to touch my beard. Because their dads, their grandpas, they don't have beards. They don't have facial hair in that region of the world. So he stared at me this whole time, and I finally walked over and he just touched my beard. And then he never looked at me again. So, in December of 2018, after the government asked us if we wanted to build the training center, the education center, the school, we said, okay, we don't have the budget for this. We don't have the money for this. And that's where the offerings that you are choosing to give to this effort are going to help support. They're going to help, well, the school is built, and now what we're doing is we're putting desks and chairs and some whiteboards, not electronic, just regular old whiteboards in each one of the classrooms. And we figured it was going to take about $2 million to build. So we sit down, we put our numbers together, and we figured it was going to be $2 million to build. We actually raised about $2.5 million to get the building done, which is good because my guesstimating of building in Vietnam was nowhere near like the build in Dane County. I really missed the mark, so it helped tremendously. So President Schrader joined us in 2019, along with, this is Pastor Schlomer. He's the administrator for the Board for World Missions, and this is Pastor Boon Kiel Lord. He's the one who they first reached out to. And this is as much as this guy smiles. That's the biggest smile you're going to get out of that guy. And then, of course, President Schrader, he's my boss. So we went over there to sign what we call a memorandum of understanding, an agreement that says the government's going to let us build this, and when we're done building it, they're going to let us use it. They're not going to take it away from us. This guy right here, that's me. That wasn't a plant. I'll give you the money later. So I mentioned that we had beat our goal of 2,000. We got 2 million. We actually got 2,400,000. And then, so we're already. I made a couple more trips over there. I walked on a lot of different properties, like when you're buying a house or when your mom or dad are going to look to rent a place. You look at a lot of different places. I looked at a lot of different properties. We finally found one, and then COVID hit. So now what? So now we can't get together and teach anymore. Now we can't get all of the pastors coming from all the different areas in the northern region of Vietnam to come down to Hanoi to teach. So we did what everybody else was doing. We went virtual. We went online. But these are farmers. These are folks who are way up in the farmland along the Chinese border who don't have cell phones or smart devices or tablets. So we had to give them those. We had or Wi-Fi, right? So we had to buy these and give them to them, and then provide that for them. So we did that. This is obviously is a picture taken before COVID. But during COVID, during that time, the church grew from 126,000 to 138,000. So when we first started working with them, they were at 55,000 members, and now they're at 138,000 members. God be praised. That's a huge number. But they're not done growing yet. So I had to go over there in September of 21. So still COVID, still a lot of lockdowns, still a lot of stuff you had to do to try and avoid getting sick. So I was on an airplane with 2 other people. It was a big jumbo jet. You could fly like 350 people on their plane, and there was 3 of us on that plane, along with the pilot and the whole flight crew and all that. And when we got to the airport, there was nobody there, except some security guards and a medical team to welcome us. So they gave me this. You see what that is? Those are safety glasses, a mask, rubber gloves, and I don't know what the blue thing was until I opened it up. But They wanted me to dress like an Oompa Loompa. You guys know what an Oompa Loompa is? A giant blueberry? Okay. So this is how, look, there's nobody else in the airport. There's no luggage. There's nobody else around. There's just us in the airport. So we had to wear rubber gloves. We had little boot things. We had the face shields. We had to wear all of that. And then they put us in a van that had sections of plastic in there so that they drove us to the place where we were going to quarantine in this sectioned off van. And then we spent what turned out to be about 25, 26 days in a hotel room by ourselves. So Pastor Schultz was in one room, Pastor Boone was in another room, and I was in another room. We had to do that for over 24 days by ourselves. So I brought 3 books, a 24-ounce container of Jif, and a box of Ritz crackers, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to eat the food that they gave me all the time. But I was only planning on being there 10 days. So we were there the whole time. This was important to us as a church body. It was important to me as an individual because we worked so hard to get there. And after that, we finally signed the paperwork for the land, and we were able to start building. So this is Pastor Terry Schultz. He works for Multi-Language Productions. He's an artist. Then this is Pastor Boone Keel Lord and his brother Jer Lord. They taught, and then myself. So we got to break ground once we signed the paperwork for the building. They invited me back for this, but I didn't want to fly. I didn't want to fly all the way back to Vietnam just to put a shovel in the ground. So I joined them virtually, but this was at 2 o'clock in the morning our time. So I got up and just jumped on my computer at 2 a.m. to join them virtually. This is the building then. This is the start of the building. This is Pastor Boone. I mentioned that I worked in Madison here. I worked in a construction company, and we used a lot of safety stuff to make sure that our workers stayed safe. They don't use a lot of safety stuff at all. But you see what this is? This is bamboo and wood. That's their scaffolding. That's what they use to prop up the structure while they build it. It's pretty crazy to think about. And then you see this blue tent here and this thing here. This is where the workers lived. When you do a construction project in Vietnam, you live on the construction site. You don't get to go home to your mom. You don't get to go home to your dad. You don't get to go home to your husband or your wife or your brothers or your sisters. You stay on that job site till that construction project is done. Not a bad rule, but we can't do that in the United States. So they got this building done really, really quick. So in July of 23, President Schrader, myself, Pastor Schlomer, and a couple of other dignitaries, bigwigs at the synod, went out for the building dedication and the graduation. So then the ladies start to dress up. Now they put on their best gear. This picture right here in the corner, that's a picture from the hotel room I was in. Look at how beautiful that is. God did a wonderful job up in northern Vietnam. It's just a beautiful country. What you can't see in this picture, right off to the left a little bit, is a drone. You know what a drone is? It's like a helicopter-like thing. It had a camera on it. Everywhere we went, that drone went. So no matter where we walked, it was following us. No matter where we were, it was recording what we were doing. We later found out that was somebody who was watching over us very closely to make sure that we were doing exactly what we were supposed to do. We're live streaming. So, this is Hanoi. This is the northern capital of Vietnam. So we had to go all the way up to this area. This is called the Sapa region. Right here is the China-Vietnam border. So it takes about 5 hours in a car. But we weren't in a car, we were in a bus, and these roads aren't like the roads we have here. So this actually took us a little over 6 hours to do. But President Schrader brought a cribbage board. So we played cribbage for about 5 hours in a truck with the president of the church body. That was kind of fun. I smoked him. I beat him. Crushed him. Again, I forgot this is being live streamed. So the motors, let's go back one. The motorcycles. Right here, this is how, oops, too far. Sorry. Now it's catching up. These motorcycles, those are how you get up the mountain. So they put me on the back of a motorcycle with about a 17-year-old kid and drove about 40 minutes up a mountain ridge where if you look down, you could see the tops of trees. It was very dangerous. I was more concerned for President Schrader than I was. But I walked back down. It took me 2.5 hours to walk, but I didn't want to get on the motorcycle and drive back down. But that's how you get around up in the mountains of Vietnam, is on a motorcycle. So then we did a bunch of visiting of rural congregations. And I talked about my beard a little earlier ago and how kids really like to touch it. This is where we were having some of our meetings right here in this building. And all these kids were just kind of hanging around. And they're just having fun. There's little to no toys. They homeschool. But this kid right here, he loved my beard too. He was a kid that just kept going, walk up to me out of the blue while I'm in a conversation with somebody, just like this. So, lots of fun with the small children in Vietnam. So I showed you that picture before with all that scaffolding and all the construction. That's the finished product right now. That's now the Theological Education Center. That's what your gifts are going to help now put equipment in the classroom. So this is the main hall upstairs. This will act as their sanctuary as well as their large classroom. And then this is one of the homes that we built for that the Hmong Fellowship Church built. They're going to put another one here and another one here for the leaders of the theological of the school to live in, so they stay close by. So we had our dedication service on the 15th of July, and they gave us, I did not know I was going to be able to do this, but they gave us scissors to help cut the ribbons. It was really, really hot outside, and so we had a competition among Pastor Schlomer, President Schrader, and myself to see who could cut the ribbon first. Pastor Schlomer won, but they gave President Schrader right-hand scissors, and President Schrader's left-handed. So he could never really cut through the ribbon, so he just kind of set it down after they cut it. Inside scoop stuff there. But again, it was super hot outside, so we got inside real quick for the building dedication. And then the next day, we had the graduation. So the very first class that started 7 years ago to learn about God's Word and then how to share God's Word finally graduated from school. And so they got their robes. And you can tell, can you guys see where I am in that picture up on top? I'm the easy one to spot out. I'm the guy not in a pastor role because, again, I'm not a pastor. But they wanted me in the picture, which is very nice. So this is the graduating class. There's 57 men who graduated that day. And these were all made by the two of the wives of the Hmong Fellowship Church leadership. So we got to do the laying of hands for the graduation, and then we had a wonderful graduation service after that. Now the second group of students, the next class, the 8th graders, 7th graders, 6th graders, the next class is now starting their training, and they did that in January, and this was done online because we didn't have the building up quite ready yet. So we're still using some of the technology that God taught us how to use during COVID, and now we're training the students even quicker. Now the Hmong Fellowship Church is over 140,000 members, so we started at 55, and now they've got over 1,500 leaders, whereas before they had about 300. So now they have that many more teachers, that many more staff ministers, male and female, that many more pastors that are able to help them teach. So we're praying that if the Lord wills it, the Hmong Fellowship Church will most likely enter full fellowship with us at not this coming summer, but the summer after that. So that we can say we're in fellowship with them, so that we can commune with them and do everything we can with brothers and sisters in other faith that we're in fellowship, like the Evangelical Lutheran Church, or I've said. But this is just the beginning. These are some of the staff ministers, some of the women that are going through the course. These are the moms and the aunts and the grandmas that are going through the course, and they dress like this for their training now too. they get all dressed up. So there's a website out there. I'm sure your principal has it. I could tell by how much information you've already shared around the school. I've got a lot more pictures of kids posted up on this website. There's a lot of material up there. I encourage the teachers, or if you're interested in going a little bit deeper, that's all located on there. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to email me or the office staff, and we'd be happy to help you. That's my presentation. I thank you for your time. I finished at 5 to 9, so I could answer any questions if anybody has any questions. You can ask me anything you want about Vietnam or any of missions at all. Please.
Can you just describe what life is like over there for most people?
Sure. There's not a lot of schooling. It's almost all homeschool. It's a lot of farming. One family or maybe two families, a generation and a generation lives in a one-room building. They have oxen, they have fields. A lot of these pictures right here, these are rice paddies. And these are what the Hmong terrace, because when you're on the bottom, that's where the Vietnamese people get to farm. But they leave the hills to the Hmong people, so they do a lot of the farming as well. Very clan. Red shirt.
What if there's like a fire? What if there's a fire? Should we like make a house?
If there's a fire, then they have a whole bunch of different people that come together and get buckets of water and put it out. Blue shirt.
Is there a lot of mountains in Vietnam?
There is a lot of mountains in Vietnam. There is. Every trip I've gone to Vietnam, I've lost no less than 7 pounds because you walk up and down a lot of mountains. Wait, over here, go ahead.
Is there a lot of trees?
Wait, right here in the sweatshirt, gray sweatshirt.
How many kids touched your beard?
Boy, that's a good question. I'd say over 100. Over my 10 trips there, sometimes a dad will even walk up and have a camera and touch me on the shoulder and point to his camera and ask if he could take my picture, and I'll say okay, and then he'll shove his kids by me. Like, so can I take your picture? I'm going to take my picture with my children. So over 100, I'd say.
It's about 10 to 11 per trip.
That's a math guy right there. You are correct, young man. Okay, right here.
Is there a lot of trees?
Is there a lot?
Mountains, big mountains.
Lots of trees and mountains.
Yes, lots of trees and mountains. Like I said, that's how they stay warm in their cold time. It doesn't get really cold, but they take some of those trees and they build their houses with them and they burn it for fuel. Right up in the front row here.
Oh.
Just fixing your hair? Okay. Back in the corner over there.
What are the chances of succeeding?
Sorry, say it again?
What are the chances of succeeding?
I still don't understand it.
What are the chances of succeeding?
Well, through God, anything is possible. And if you look at the growth that they've had from that starting of 55,000 to over, over 140, they're almost tripled in size. So to me, their chances of success are pretty good. And again, God's grace is shown extensively on this church body. They're really working hard to share the gospel. I'm going to go all the way back, young lady. How many kids or adults do I think there are? Well, I know that when they give me the total, that's just the adults. So I would say there's over 220,000 Hmong families that are members in the Hmong Fellowship Church. I have time for one more question. I have had malaria, but I was in Malawi when I had that. I've been to 40 different countries in the 11 years I've worked here now. Again, remember, before I started this job, I was in Duluth. And now I'm on my 3rd passport. In fact, next week I'm going to Canada. Not quite Vietnam or Africa, but Well, thank you very much for your attention today, boys and girls. It was a great, you did a good job of paying attention. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's thank Mr. Shaw. So now you have a better idea of what our mission offerings that we're giving each week in our second quarter chapel services are going to go for. So hopefully that helps, and we pray God continues to bless those efforts. Thank you for your attention this morning. Let you guys go. Let's go first grade. Those of you that have kindergarten buddies, if you want to go out that way and take that back. The rest of the stuff in there, you can follow. That's great.
Thank you, Dan.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
God's blessings, Canada, what part of Canada?
Annual general meeting with Metzger at
Toronto.
no, in Alberta.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Sean.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Yep.
I'm good. Thank you. I'm going back upstairs.
Okay, so you can